Welcome to Stars Matter in the Until Saturday feed. I'm Mitch Light, joined by Ari Wasserman, a national college football reporter. There are rumors that Ari's going to write an actual story this week. Hopefully, we can confirm those reports in the next few days. Ari, good to have you. How you doing, buddy?
I learned that you went to Disney World on your honeymoon, so that's a pretty solid start.
Why are you changing the subject?
I'm writing today. After this is over with, I'm going to write the story when I'm done here, and let's talk about that. Though, you want to talk about your honeymoon, or
we can do that later.
Let's make sure we check back in on that.
Okay, I'd be happy to talk about it. Also joined by Manny Navarro. Manny covers Miami for us and is a recruiting reporter. And Manny, I believe you have already booked your flight to Houston for the national title game after watching the Canes last week. Can we confirm that report?
Yes. All we needed was one victory here at Miami to say we're back, right? That's what the Miami Hurricanes fans
was anybody there to see it, Manny?
There were a few people. They just didn't want to spend $200 on a ticket, so.
I heard that Miami did the BOGO thing that they do at Payless Shoes for tickets this week.
Yes. It worked for 48,000, and they were loud. I got to give them credit. They were loud.
It's a good atmosphere. We'll get into that.
I was just teasing you. I don't want you to get too high up. You know what I mean?
Also joined by Grace Rayner. Grace is back after a wedding weekend. Not Grace's wedding, but glad to have you back. Grace, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I went to our colleague Brendan Marks' wedding. He's one of my best friends. It was awesome. So yeah, I'm doing well.
Good. Well, good to have you back. Good show. We've got a major commitment to talk about. We'll talk about the Colorado Buffaloes and what they can get done on the recruiting trail after there's actually a proof of concept. Ari wrote about that a few weeks ago. We'll hit on Texas's big win. Ari was in Tuscaloosa for that and what it means for the Horns on the recruiting trail. And I've got some data on where top players in each state are heading, plus trivia. First, let's go with the biggest, basically, recruiting news of the week. And not a huge surprise because we thought this was going to happen, but Micah Hudson, wide receiver from Texas, number 9 player nationally, number 2 wide receiver, commits to Texas Tech. Thought this might happen over the summer. The timing's interesting because Texas Tech is actually 0-2. But Ari, we'll start with you because you've written a decent amount about this program, and Joey McGuire and Sam Kahn's done a great job profiling it as well. But no doubt about it, a huge get for Texas Tech. But as we've seen, getting the reservation's one thing, keeping the reservation is another thing, keeping the commitment's another thing. So that's what we're going to be monitoring.
Yeah, I think it's probably a time where Texas Tech could use some good news, and to pick up a 5-star prospect in state that I think some people view could be a potential generational talent, kind of in the Garrett Wilson mold, out of the state of Texas, and keeping them away from some of the in-state foes that they have is the exact type of get that Texas Tech was hoping to build toward. I mean, they've got 19 commitments in their class right now, the 2024 class. It's number 23 overall, and all 19 of their commitments are from Texas. So, if that's going to be their plan, graduating to a place where you start competing for and landing the upper echelon kids in Texas is a huge momentum shift for Texas Tech. And unlike the high-end top 100 corner Calvin Simpson Hunt, that they got an early commitment from, and then saw him go to Ohio State after he blew up in the rankings, this one's kind of the opposite, where, this commitment comes after Hudson was already a 5-star player. So if you're worried about, NIL or potential flips late and all those things, then of course you're always going to panic about that when you're at Texas Tech and you got somebody like this in the fold. But this wasn't a late bloomer that started getting offers from Alabama and Texas late in the process. He already had these when he made these commitments. So to me, that is probably a better shot or conversion rate for a place like Texas Tech to hold on to them. And Mitch, I think you had a stat about this the other day. But when you look at the 5-star in the 247 Sport composite, all their places that they've gone to, of course, you're going to see a heavy dose of some Ohio State and Georgia, but you have one that's committed to Missouri. You've got a few committed to Florida State. You got Texas Tech. You got South Carolina, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, Miami, Arizona. There's a nice little spread here on these 5-star prospects and where they're going. And I don't know how this is all going to play out at the end, when it's all said and done. But to see more of a spread on the top echelon type players in this part of the year, September 15th, this will be going up, or the 14th, I should say. That's a pretty good sign for just like the balance of the sport. So I love seeing kids from states that are as deep as Texas pick something that's a little bit different. But I also love seeing that Arizona was able to close on their guy and the Missouri was able to close on their guy. Certainly a nice little trend that's not just the same usual Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State result.
And kind of, I think the point you were making too is that there's no new news. Nothing new is going to develop. I mean, Texas Tech could lose all of its games, I suppose, but it's not like you said he's going to climb the rankings, or, he has all the information he needs. There's no new NIL package at other schools. So to your point, I think it's going to hold, has a better chance of holding. And I think if you're Texas, who probably thought they had a good chance, if there's going to be 1 week where you're going to lose them, it's, the week after beating Alabama, Manny. I think that's probably, a soft landing spot for Texas fans, that they can deal with that.
Yeah, and they're obviously still in it for a lot of great players, in that state, out of that area. They're still in it for the top receiver out of Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, whose name's escaping me right now.
Ryan Wingo?
Yeah, I think Ryan Wingo is still very much in play for them. So, they're going to be able to make up for that, more than make up for that, after beating Alabama, and just kudos to Sarkisian for getting that win. And, Ari's preseason pick to get to the, national championship game or the playoff this year at the very least. I mean, I think it's looking really good right now. And that's just going to pay off on the recruiting trail, I think, in the weeks and months ahead. They've got some good guys that they've been after for a while, as we've talked about here before. It feels like the guys in Texas and out on the West Coast take a little longer than the guys on the East Coast to sort of commit. So you still have some available players that are going to be committing and flipping here in the months ahead. So I think Texas, I picked them as one of the highest risers. I think when Grace and I did that story a couple weeks ago, predicting what would happen on the recruiting trail, I think it's definitely going to happen for Texas.
Yeah, and to the point Ari was making, I jotted this down. Now, we all have different, I don't know, classifications on what we call like an elite program. Like I think a 5-star kid signing with Florida State or Tennessee or committing is not like that big of a deal, just because it's a nationally prominent program that has recruited that level for years. So I just have a very nebulous, like, non-elite programs. I wanted to see if more 5-stars are committing as opposed to in years past. So like this year we've got Williams. Grace, when you talk to his coach, have we ever gotten an official pronunciation? Is it Winery?
I think the N is silent. I should have asked. I'm not positive, but I think the N is silent.
Okay. Well, Winery to Minnesota, Micah Hudson to Minnesota, Missouri, Micah Hudson to Texas Tech, and Dylan Stewart to South Carolina. Last year I counted 4. Now here's one that Dante Moore to UCLA. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise when a 5-star goes to UCLA, but they haven't had one since. Who was the last one they had? Was it Phillips?
I think it was somewhere around the Vietnam War.
So, Dante Moore to UCLA, Cormani McClain to Colorado, Suntarine Perkins to Ole Miss, and Nicholas Harbor to South Carolina. Then the year before that, we had 4, Travis Hunter to Jackson State, Luther Burden to Missouri, and Zach Rice and Travis Shaw to North Carolina. Grace, should we consider a 5-star committing to North Carolina? I still think that's, it's a non-elite program. They've recruited more 5-stars recently, but I think that's still one of those that Ari was talking about off the board, like to spread the wealth.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's a exciting time when Carolina lands a 5-star, not necessarily an expectation.
Yes.
Hey, Mitch, the thing that I would like to butt in here on that,
sure,
is that, we had stats like the last 3 or 4 cycles when we've done, thought pieces at the end where we would say, 55%, 63%, 66% of the top 100 players went to a cluster of 5 schools. And sometimes the 5th school changed. I think like one year it was Texas, one year obviously it was A&M. But I would consider any program that isn't traditionally in that cluster for the past 4 or 5 years to be significant.
Yes.
So Florida State and Tennessee, not being strangers to big time football. I mean, Florida State's won a national championship in the last, decade or so. I understand your viewpoint of that, but Florida State getting one now is a huge step in the right direction to solve the recent problem in recruiting, which is Alabama signing 9 of them. You know,
Yeah.
like to me, anybody who's not Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or even Clemson to a certain extent, I think is a huge step forward. Like South Carolina and Tennessee and even Mizzou has signed a few 5-star prospects like Luther Burden, and now they might get 2 in the same cycle, depending on what happens with Wingo. Like there is a lot to be said for just the math on that in terms of the cluster, because the cluster is the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's 2 different things. One is the point you just made is spreading the wealth, the cluster, all that. Then there's the other ones, the more off the board programs that would just historically have not been in this mix. Now, South Carolina fans might disagree with that because they had that run in the Spurrier area where they've signed. You mentioned the Missouri ones. Ole Miss has had a run. So I guess all these programs.
Yeah, but the thing too with South Carolina is that the run that they had during Spurrier was during a nice little uptick on in-state land during a time in which Clemson wasn't made yet. So like the fact that they're getting guys out of DC is a huge step in the right direction, and I would argue very atypical from their history even during that run.
Yes, and Grace has been on the South Carolina / DC recruiting beat for us.
Killing it.
Maybe Shane Beamer should have made 1 extra recruiting call rather than tweeting at Big Game Boomer over the weekend or with the last couple of days. Huh, Grace? Did you see that, guys? Shane's he's a media friendly head coach. Seems like a genuinely good dude. But if you're a head coach in the SEC or any FBS program, don't tweet at Big Game Boomer.
Who is Big Game Boomer? Is that? Am I allowed to ask that?
It's just a fan. It's a site.
It's a random Twitter account who has ranked me like the 31st most influential college football personality in front of Bruce Feldman. So the man's never watched anything.
There we go. That's all. Shane Beamer,
all the credibility needed.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. Don't tweet and then don't tweet to Big Game Boom. No, it's just if you're listening to this podcast,
legit. He's good in my book.
You've probably seen Big Game Boomer's tweets there. So just to not that Shane Beamer needs my advice, but
are you saying that I'm not the 33rd most influential college football personality in the world?
I've got you 3rd overall, by the way.
Yeah.
I think they should do like unhinged rankings. You'd be number 1 on that.
It was really funny because when that list came out, Andy was still working here, and I was on his show, and I was 2 spots ahead of him on the list.
I'm sure that went over well.
That was hilarious. I was like,
I've got you
baby.
ranked 3rd on this podcast behind Grace 1 and Manny 2.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Everybody knows Grace is 1. We'll fight for 2.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Exactly.
Those footsteps.
All right, let's talk about Texas right now. There's no recruiting news for Texas other than the fact that they did not get Micah Hudson. But we were talking the other day. Texas has always had a roster that's good enough to win Big 12 championships and flirt with the playoff. Their roster hasn't been Alabama good from a recruiting standpoint, or Georgia good, or Clemson good for the most part. Now, what we're seeing now is a combination of better development, and also just their elite recruits are playing like elite recruits on both sides of the ball, both sides of the line of scrimmage. So I guess it's no surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise, especially how this team is built. But it's for this podcast called Stars Matter. I guess it's good that Texas is good. You were at the game last week. You saw those stars shining brightly.
Yeah, it was I need glasses, really.
I texted a friend of yours. I said, Ari's in the same building with Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. Think he can control himself? And the reply was,
I was next
no
to
chance.
Arch Manning. I was next to Arch Manning walking off the field, and I got to say, he kind of looks the part. I think that he's going to be, he looks like.
Did he say hi?
I'm not a weirdo, but I think that part of the reason why he was ranked so high, obviously, is his last name. But if you look at him, like his face and his body makeup, just looks like an elite quarterback. So, we'll see how that goes. But, the thing that jumped out to me, Mitch, is, and you were a huge part of the math on our 3-star U series. And if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Texas's developmental numbers, I think they were okay with 5 stars, right? But they were terrible with 3 and 4 stars, which is the bulk of what they signed. And they were one of the most disappointing developmental programs in college football. I mean, they would bring the guys in, and then I think they went, when Bijan Robinson got drafted last year in the first round, that was the first time since Vince Young that they had an offensive player drafted in the first round. Can you think about that for a second? That is the span of my adult life. Wait, that's even more so. I was in high school when Vince Young was playing.
You're an adult,
depending on who you ask. I'm still not one, but like there's no reason why a team that should be recruiting in that manner to go that long without at least like backing into one. I mean, you have FCS teams who back into one, during that time period. So to see Xavier Worthy playing well, to see Quinn Ewers kind of develop and take that next step and hit some deep shots, and to have their defensive line, and Kelvin Banks is a hit. A 5-star offensive lineman, might be a top 10 pick next year when he's available to be drafted. Like watching them play, I've covered a lot of games with teams that are legitimate national championship contenders in my lifetime, and Texas looked the part. They were flying to the football. They had a quarterback who was standing, brave and unbothered in the face of pressure. The receivers are open all the time. They run the ball pretty hard. I mean, 7-minute drive to end the game where Alabama couldn't stop them. I just think that like the pieces of what Texas has done this year with the roster that they have is a little bit atypical than what we've seen from them. And that's part of the reason why I'm confident they're going to outperform the preseason thought process for most people. So that said, I look at Texas's commitments in the 2024 class, and I know that they're still in it with a handful of top-rated players like Manny alluded to, but 17 commitments. They rank 17 overall in the 247 Sport Composite, and only 2 top 100 players in that group. So I'm very curious to see, if Texas makes a run the way they anticipate that they will, if that's going to change, or if their class is going to finish with a big bang. But the thing that's so interesting about Texas is that we talk about their talent and, how they're more talented than everybody in their conference and all those things, as it pertains to the 247 Sport team talent composite, but they aren't built like Georgia and they aren't built like Alabama yet. And that would be the next step in the progression if they are able to show some proof of concept on the field, not just with winning games or making the playoff for the first time in a while, but also proving to say, hey, if you're a 5-star prospect, this isn't a graveyard for your development. This is actually a place where you can flourish. And I don't think that they've been able to sell that for much of the past 10 years.
Great. So I think that this Texas team right now reminds me, not for style or anything, but some of the Clemson teams you covered. Like recruited very well. Not top 2 or 3 classes, but they hit at the quarterback position, and their stars were stars. You would know better, Ari, you and Manny, you might remember. Off the top of my head, I don't remember any like 5-star busts at Clemson. I'm sure there were, because if you sign some, they're going to be busts. But it's just like Clemson developed its players, hit at the quarterback position, and had some elite playmakers.
That's the where I think is so crucial, especially when you look at Clemson now. You see like what happens when you don't hit at the quarterback position. Not to say that Cade Klubnik isn't the answer, but that to me is what is so impressive about Texas, is that they've hit at the quarterback position. Full disclosure, I did not watch that game. I was at that wedding, but I mean, to go into Alabama and do that is so impressive. And to your point, Ari, to now just have some proof of concept. Like when I looked at this Texas team at the beginning of the year, I still looked at them as this is a program that recently lost to Kansas. And I was not totally sold on them, but that's the kind of statement win with the big time 5-star quarterback that they obviously hit on that I think changes the way we think about them.
And Manny, speaking of proof of concept, the team that you cover, I think you even wrote this in your column. I forgot who it was a local kid. I think it was a legacy, a Miami legacy. His point was basically like, kids in South Florida want to go to Miami, but we need a reason to go to Miami. And this, again, there's only one game, but this had to be just a huge step forward for Mario. And you mentioned this, he kind of smirked when someone asked him how it's going to help in recruiting. Yeah. And the win's big, the ramifications could be bigger.
Yeah, Mario obviously is all about recruiting. And I asked him in the post-game press conference, I said, Mario, there were a lot of recruits here today. Can you speak to the importance? And before I could even get to the second part of my question, he's like, oh yeah. Like he just had that, like
you turned into the Kool-Aid man.
That didn't come across in your Manny. That didn't come across in your story. Oh yeah,
yeah. He definitely delivered the oh yeah as I was asking that, and so yeah. I mean, they were happy. I mean, they had close to 100 kids there in total. A lot of 25 and 26 guys that they really like locally. Armando Blunt, who's probably the best defensive lineman in the 2025 class. Right after the game, is tweeting, "I'm loving Miami." So for James Williams, who was a former 5-star recruit, that's the player you alluded to in my story. He didn't get a chance to go just during the COVID year when he was being recruited. So he didn't get a chance to go and visit a bunch of places. He basically stayed home because of COVID. And I think for Miami, now Mario Cristobal has given him a reason to stay home because of what they're seeing on the field. And for them to put up 48 points, I think that was more important than anything else after last year, the kind of season they had with Josh Gaddis, to just score as many points as they did and to show receivers and future recruits, hey, we've got an exciting offense. That I think really is going to pay dividends for them going forward. Waden Charles, who's a top 2025 receiver, I think he's in the top 200 of the 247 composite from Palm Beach Central, committed to Miami yesterday or 2 days ago, following the win. And so, look, it's a long time from here until when Waden Charles signs, but I think all of this is the kind of momentum that Mario really needed after they looked terrible last year, man. 5-7, they were just really bad. And as good as that signing class was, it's like everybody's like, well, it's NIL, right? They're spending all this money. They're going to get all these kids. The momentum kind of stopped a little bit, right? And then now it's picking up again. And I think this is going to be another really good class for Miami in 2024.
So when we were talking Mike Hudson before, there are a couple other commitments I meant to get to. Chris Cole, linebacker to Georgia from Salem, Virginia, the number 1 player in the state of Virginia. We're going to get more into that a little bit more in a minute. Number 63 overall, the Nigel Smith, defensive lineman to Oklahoma. Number 115 overall from Melissa, Texas. Or isn't Melissa, Texas the one of the schools with the absurd new field?
That's Prosper, I think. But
they're
all kind of in the same north of Dallas area. It's like kind of up where Chris lives.
Okay.
There's a Buc-ee's gas station there.
Okay. Is it a good one?
They're all the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. They've got good food there.
I'll be at probably Buc-ee's a week from Friday, driving over to Winston-Salem. We always stop at the Buc-ee's in Crossville, Tennessee. I was
Is it a big one?
It's new, so yeah, it's enormous.
We Britt and I went to a wedding out in Hallettsville, Texas, a few weeks ago, and when I say like middle of nowhere, like it was middle of nowhere. Like drive to Waco, then off the main highway for 3 hours, middle of nowhere. And there was a Buc-ee's on the way, and I was like, "Holy crap! Why would they have this huge Buc-ee's out here? Like, let's go get stuff."
It's probably 5,000 people. There's not a lot of,
and it was just a small Buc-ee's. It was like the size of a Circle K, and I was like, "I didn't know these existed."
Oh, small.
Buc-ee's.
It was really off-putting.
I was anti-Buc-ee's. I didn't know anything about Buc-ee's. I don't know how I didn't know. And we're driving, the new one open, and Heather wanted to stop. And I was hungry coming back from Winston-Salem, and it was packed. And I was like, "This is a nightmare." And then I went the next time, and now I'm a convert. Clean bathrooms. It's huge, so you can always park.
I think it's too stressful. I can't do it.
Too stressful?
It's kind of like,
I went to a grand opening on accident, and it scarred me.
Yeah, well, that is a problem. But listen, you know what you're going to get out of the toilets, and I think that is the number one thing. I stop there to go to the bathroom when I don't have to go. Like,
you buy art in the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't know who these people are who are buying apparel there, or home decor. It's a gas station. I don't really.
It's like a whole art gallery of the bathroom.
I know, and it's all like, I don't know what it's like in other states. I've only been to the ones in Texas, but like it's all super Texas. It's like a cowboy grabbing a bull by the horns and like the big Texas star, and it's the most Texas stuff you can find. But I think that it's great to have every single thing that you could possibly want to eat or drink. I just don't know who's buying home improvement products in here. Like, I mean, it's bizarre to me.
Do you get your picture taken? Do you get your picture taken with the Buc-ee out front, Ari?
I don't.
A selfie?
No.
Okay.
We'll talk about taking pictures of the mascots at the end of the show, though.
Okay, good. That's let me jot down
Disney World. Yeah,
this guy.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't get my picture taken.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, I'm here to defend my. First of all, we'll get into it later.
It's embarrassing. Yeah,
it's not embarrassing. I am proud. One decommitment, if I can find my notes. Michael Boré, defensive lineman from Hampton, Georgia.
I think his name's Makai Boré.
Yeah,
Makai is his first name. I don't know how to say
he at one point was listed 6'5", 390, now 6'5", 350. He's number 706, but obviously he's a guy that has offers that are higher, or whatever you want to say, than his ranking. He decommitted from Florida, and Georgia appears to be trending there. So a big potential run stopper. He might be in one of those in 2 or 3 years, he's an All-American. We look up and, it's just another 3-star that Georgia developed. So, all right. So I was just poking around the other day, looking at recruiting sites, and was kind of struck by what I thought were how many number 1 overall players in a state are heading out of state.
Will you send me the stat when we're done with the show too?
I will, and I'm going to ask you this because it's in the Google Doc, which you haven't opened since May 10th, so I know you don't know the number here.
Does it actually tell you?
Yes.
You haven't opened
Last
it since
last
May 10th?
opened, Cam Molina yesterday, Manny today, Grace yesterday, Ari May 10th.
I'm not good at Google Docs. It gives me. You want to talk about your stress and Bucky's? Like when I open up a document and there's 9 other people like editing it, it makes me just like nauseous. I can't do it. Like I just have to be in my own world.
So you just like fly by the seat of your pants on these podcasts? You have no clue what we're talking about ever?
No.
Oh my gosh.
So let me, I will
It's like,
It's like we talk about. I mean, we think about it all day. Like it's not like it's like, oh, okay. And today's topic is
I'm actually
biochemistry.
impressed. I have to always look.
So
Yeah.
we have a Google Doc with like our national writers about where they're traveling to, and there was some confusion that I was asked, is Ari going to the Florida-Tennessee game? And I was like, no, that was never even talked about. It's like, well, it's in the Google Doc. Maybe, someone jokingly said, well, maybe Ari went in there to go. I said, well, no, that's not possible because Ari doesn't know how to use a Google Doc. So there's no, and then Eric Siegel said, ooh, the perfect crime. So
wait, when is that game? That's this weekend?
yes. Are you going?
Is it too late?
Hey, why don't you come pick me up? We'll go together.
I gotta.
Oh no, it's in Florida.
I would love to, but I'll pick you up and then we'll go.
Yeah. No, I actually said
This
that Ari
is-
probably wouldn't want to go because he's been traveling so much.
Do they want somebody to go?
No. It was a
Oh.
jotted down incorrectly from this summer. So Manny would go if we needed someone to go.
I don't. What?
He lives in the state of
lives in
Florida. Are you
Florida.
suggesting that he couldn't do a good job?
5-hour drive.
Yeah. Are you suggesting he couldn't do
I
a
mean,
good job?
I think it's possible that if we did a rat race and we did who can get to Gainesville faster, me or Manny, and like he was driving and I flew, like it's a chance that I would get there before him.
He's right.
It's not the easiest place to get to. Like connecting flights. You would Dallas to Orlando. Hey,
Or what if
Orlando. You know what you could do if you're in Orlando?
Seduce my wife there.
Okay, let's get back to the point. There are 33 blue chippers. Are you paying attention, Ari?
Yes,
33
but you're going to
blue-
send it to me.
33 blue chippers who are the top players in the state with a P5 program. Like I'm not counting Massachusetts because those guys aren't going to UMass. No offense, Minutemen. How many of those 33 blue chippers who are number 1 in their state, Ari, are staying in state? It's committed right now.
11.
Did you just figure out how to open up the doc?
What? No, that's my guess.
I
Look
can
at the
check.
date
I can
last
check if
open.
you went in
Go
there.
check the date.
Go
Yeah,
look,
I
go
can-
check it.
I'll do it in a second. Yes, 11 staying in state, 19
impressive, Ari.
out of state, 3
Whoa.
uncommitted. Now, a few caveats here. I did not include Dylan Raiola as a Georgia. He's the number 1 player in Georgia if you go to the recruiting sites, but I consider him an Arizona prospect because that's where, and the IMG guys did not count. And so like
Who did
Elijah
you pick as the number 1 player in Florida, the first non-IMG player?
Well, Jeremiah Smith is, so that actually didn't factor in. So, and Elijah Rushing, would have been, if Dylan Raiola is counted as Georgia, Rushing would have been the number 1 player in state. So it's not, this is unscientific, whatever, or I guess it is scientific because it's exact, but it's not, there's only 1 player in each state, so it's not some trend. But I'll go through some of them. Interestingly enough,
Arizona doesn't get credit for rushing, is what you're saying.
No. Actually, I said there are 33 blue chippers who are the top players in the state that has a P5. It's actually only 32. So the answer is 10. You're wrong. I counted Gatlin Bear going to Boise State. So we have to X him. So you're wrong, Ari. It's 10.
Okay.
Sorry. A couple of the other ones, Ohio, a couple of notable ones, Aaron Scott to Ohio State, Pennsylvania, Quentin Martin to Penn State, South Carolina, top 100 guy, Josiah Thompson to South Carolina, Texas with Colin Simmons to Texas. So, I don't want to go through all of them here, but Ari, would you have guessed that if we didn't lead into it with the thinking that there's more out of state than we think? Like, is that what you would expect?
No, I mean, probably because I knew like guys like Jeremiah Smith were committed outside of their state, and I know that it's been more prevalent. And the thing I'll say is that a lot of the top players that are in that 10 or 11, whichever one you're counting, are top players that are committed to their in-state players, but I know those places are rare, and I didn't know that rushing didn't count. So actually, if you subtract the rushing not counting one, then I'm back to being correct. If you do the math there.
Yeah, and one of them there's 3 uncommitted. Oklahoma, and here's another one. I did not count David Stone to Oklahoma. He would have been the number 1 player. He's from Oklahoma, so again.
That should probably count too.
Yeah, I thought about it. I thought it was Oklahoma. Daniel.
I'm actually not going to use that stat because you didn't use it because you just like removed IMG from all of it, and then you took all the good players.
Hard.
We can easily adjust the IMG fact. I think he's the only one that would really change that. So Oklahoma, Daniel Koyo, uncommitted. Kansas, Michael Boganowski, and then Iowa, Grace's new friend Grant Bricks. I'm going to tease that story. Will be up in the morning. There's sort of we kind of tease this, or the headline is like the most unassuming top 100 players. Grant Bricks, an offensive lineman from Iowa. He's down to Kansas State, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Nebraska. Just some guy who, I mean, Grace, you can talk about it. A really interesting kid just because he's so unassuming. He's just he really does seem like he's a late bloomer who he's not going to be one of those guys you plug in at left tackle as a true freshman, but he could be a really good player.
Yeah, I think he is kind of the rare late bloomer, especially in today's recruiting landscape. His high school runs the wishbone, so his pass protection is going to need to be basically overhauled. But super interesting kid. Just spent all summer last summer going to about 10 Power 5 camps. No one gave him an offer. And then on his last one, Kansas State was the first one to take the risk. And then we've talked a lot on this pod about groupthink. And as soon as Kansas State got in, the dominoes started to fall. He gained 30 pounds in the past year. Alabama offered him in June, and he jumped 200 spots in the rankings. So super cool kid. Thinks he's taking a journalism class right now. So that was fun. We talked about
he's asking Grace all these journalism questions.
It was very sweet. Yeah. It was very endearing. But yeah, I'll be really curious to see where he goes and if Kansas State being first pays off for him in the end, or pays off for them.
What's funny about recruiting podcast or the Stars Matter podcast is we always talk he gained 30 pounds and then he got an offer. And I thinking to myself, wouldn't it be great if we all could gain 30 pounds and good things would happen to us? It's Mitch gained 30 pounds and he got a raise, it's just
well, that people say pound for pound. What if you pound for pound, the highest paid
I gained 30 pounds too last year. I didn't gain any money for it.
I think you lost money because of it.
I did. Well, no, it's pending. I just did I ran stadium stairs today. So
again, what stadium?
It wasn't it was a local middle school that had a little aluminum stair thing that I was going up and down in the heat.
Did you trespass on this middle school?
I mean, it's 6 a.m, so people weren't there yet. Fair. And I do try to stay away from middle schools during business hours.
What FBS stadium do you live closest to? SMU or
Yeah, SMU.
Okay,
without question.
Yeah,
it's 10 minutes from here.
In the North Texas is probably 40 minutes away, maybe.
Yeah. I should start just doing stadium stairs, and then one day I'll do Michigan's when I get to the top, and I can do a montage like Rocky. Actually, Michigan doesn't allow you into their stadium unless you're going for a game, so probably not.
Yeah,
a great plug for official visit.
Yeah, Manny, what do you live closest to? FIU? FAU?
Yeah, I actually live closer to FIU than I do Miami. So it's FIU stadium. I've never run the stadium steps there. I haven't been there in about 8 years, which is probably bad considering I went to school there. But and obviously Hard Rock Stadium. Although I will say, I guess I am closer to Hard Rock Stadium because again, Miami doesn't play on campus, so I'm further away from Miami's campus, but closer to Miami's football stadium.
But you go to Miami's campus all the time for interviews, right?
Right, exactly.
I gotta say, Miami's got to be one of the top 4 worst traffic cities in the country.
Absolutely, yes,
it's awful,
no question. Not as bad as LA, but certainly close. And I've been.
LA's the worst, but Pittsburgh is sneaky terrible too.
Atlanta's bad.
Atlanta's bad.
Yeah, Atlanta's really bad.
Grace lives awful. A hop, skip, and a jump from the Monarchs of Old Dominion, right?
I do. Yep. I met Ricky Ronnie a couple weeks ago. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Are you going to go to the Wake at ODU game?
I
Is it
should.
this-
That's this
is it-
week.
Yeah. Are you going?
I don't know. Should I?
It's I don't know. You just show up. You're Grace Rayner. Look at your press.
Mitch, what FBS campus do you live closest to?
What do you think?
Well, Vanderbilt's not FBS.
Oh, that's so funny. I knew you were going to say that. Ooh, you're pretty clever today.
I was about to say,
Hey
where is
guys,
he going
Mitch
with
went to
this?
Vanderbilt.
I am live about 40, maybe about an hour from Middle Tennessee, and then 15 minutes from Vanderbilt, and then I guess 2.5 hours from Tennessee. No, Western Kentucky is actually only about 45 minutes. That might be the second closest. All right, Ari, would you like to ask me any questions about my honeymoon or anything like that? Or
You're gonna lob it up for him like that?
well, I mean, we got to get to
You
it.
really made a mistake here, pal. Like, all right, I'm just going to say this in the most podcast-friendly way.
Okay.
Your honeymoon,
Yes.
which is supposed to be peak intimacy between a couple, both emotionally and physically. You chose to go to a children's theme. Well, yeah, I mean, usually, I don't know, everybody's different. You chose to go to a children's theme park.
I did not choose. I was gifted. We went to Sanibel Island, Florida for 3 days.
Yeah, that's great.
And then a friend of mine got us a overnight or a day's pass or whatever to Disney World. I had never been before.
I
I
want to
think
talk
that's
to your
different.
friend.
He didn't go to Disney.
Did your friend get this
Disney.
for your wedding?
Yeah, it was my wedding present. And I was always scared of roller coasters growing up. I never went on them. Like we go in New Jersey, we go to Great Adventure, and I would always like be the scared dude who like just waited for his buddies. And I was like, you know what? I'm a married man. I'm old enough to go on a roller coaster. And I went on Space Mountain.
Okay, so that's like a ride, from what I understand, that like you have to be 3.5 feet tall to ride. So I'm happy you mustered the
Mountain's
courage to go on that ride.
Yeah.
Are you still friends with this person that got you the tickets?
Yes, very much so.
Can we have him on the pod next week to discuss?
You've been
why
on
he
his
was buying
pod, I
Disney
think.
World?
You've been on his pod. My
Braden?
friend Bill. No, my friend Bill.
Oh, and he's like, these two people just got married. They're in love. I'm gonna send them to go see Daffy Duck. Like that's what was going through his head right now. Like I don't know, like what.
Did you
Some
just
people get-
call him
You
Daphne?
called him
Duck?
Daffy. That's Warner Brothers, dude.
What's his name?
Daffy.
Donald.
Maybe
Duck.
if you
You called
spent
him
more
Daffy.
time there, you would know.
Wait, I thought it was Daffy with no N.
No, Daffy's Warner
Daffy
Brothers.
Duck
dude.
isn't.
Donald Duck is with Disney, man. Daffy's with
Now
Warner
you're
Brothers.
correcting me because I don't know enough about Disney characters. I'm a 36-year-old man who had a baby 18 months ago. We haven't gotten to that phase yet.
You're-
Why
you're
would
gonna-
I know that? Like, why are
You're
you
gonna-
making fun of me for not knowing that? I have adult interests.
I
All
feel
right.
bad. I was also wrong about this. Sorry.
Daffy Duck isn't. I didn't even know that there was a difference. I just.
There is.
But do you
But-
think that like it's like Manny? Who's your best friend?
I mean, my best friend is a DJ
Ooh.
here in South Florida, so he wouldn't
Is he
send
married?
me Disney tickets. No, he's single. That's
Okay.
DJs usually. I mean, I don't know too many of them that are still married or got married. So
It's oots, 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 you
Like
know,
if
that-
it was my
Every
only,
night.
if that's the only thing we did for 5 days, I would agree that it's a little weird.
Have you ever gotten a friend a wedding gift, Mitch?
Of course, I've gotten a friend a wedding gift.
Did you ever even consider the notion that you're like, you know what, I can get them like this nice pan set for their house or a gift card or money. You're like, you know what, I'm getting him Disney World tickets. Like, you don't think that's
Turn them
bizarre?
down? Do you think I should have turned it down?
I'm not saying I would have turned them down, but maybe I would have made a return trip. I would have stayed at the oceanfront.
We were
hotel
already
with
going to be in Florida. We flew into Orlando.
That's the thing. They're already there. That's the
rented a car.
crucial part
rented a
here.
Well,
car.
actually, like I feel like you going is less weird than you receiving it now. Like I didn't
Okay.
know the story, and now that you told us the story, we'll take the pressure off of you. And now let's bring Bill onto the show to discuss, like, of all the things that you could have gotten. Like, was it on your registry?
No, it was not. No.
So how did this person arrive at that gift?
It's a unique, thoughtful gift.
Okay, Matt,
Okay, I'm gonna get
Man,
my
man,
best friend when he gets
honestly,
married
honestly,
karate lessons.
do you think it's weird, Manny, that I went
Do
to
I?
Disney, that I went to Disney World for one night on my honeymoon?
I don't. I mean, I went on a cruise for my honeymoon, and we ended up going to, I think, SeaWorld, because on the cruise ship we happened to stop wherever SeaWorld was, and we went there for the afternoon and then ended up getting back on the ship. But it was just a few hours. I know.
Grace, I don't know where you guys are going on your honeymoon, but I'll give my
We're
what we
going to
should
Thailand.
do? All three of us put together, and we'll send Grace to like some amusement park or something like that. Are you okay there?
We're going
She
to
likes
Thailand.
Universal.
What's wrong, Ari?
Ari is literally.
Ari, the camera's on.
Now Ari? I feel like where did you go?
You didn't go. Cabo? What a cliche.
Oh no. We went to Turks and Caicos.
Wow, you don't even know where you went.
Yeah, a year later.
Cabo was where.
At least I went on my honeymoon the next day.
We went the year before. We didn't go. Yeah, my honeymoon, I guess, is hilarious because my honeymoon was the Athletic College Football Writers Conference.
Yeah.
Because I went there a few days, but we had a baby, so ours was a little bit different. See, that's good.
Sorry,
dude. I like my new thing on this podcast is I'm not making fun of you.
Did you just say I'm not making fun of you while you're about to keel over there?
No, it's just like I can just like picture newlywed Manny feeding a dolphin with a fin.
it happens. There's
I
photos
love
there.
picking
It
up.
happens. It happened. Yes, exactly.
No, but like we decided that Mitch wasn't weird for going, and like you're not weird for going. You were on a cruise, and that was one of the stops. But we do think it's weird that he got it, right? Like that's bizarre. Like the gift.
It was an expensive gift.
I don't think it's
I'm
weird.
not saying it wasn't a nice gift. I'm not saying it wasn't a thoughtful gift. I'm saying
He
it's
knew-
a weird gift.
He's Mitch's best friend, so we knew where he was honeymooning. It wasn't like right, like here's
Okay.
these random.
All right.
You know it's
Disney
going to be in
tickets.
Sanibel Island. Yeah. So. Okay.
I'm gonna make fun of you on Twitter, Manny. Just beware.
Yeah,
Like,
it's all good.
like my new thing is like figuring out the bizarre things about my friends' lives and then like attacking it publicly. Like when Dave ordered hibachi to his hotel room, like that.
Yeah.
Like I just like everything about like I'm a weird dude.
We know.
I like the Filet-O-Fish sandwich. I've got my own idiosyncrasies, but I think that like if you like look at my life, I'm pretty like right down the line of normalcy. Like so when I hear things that are a little bit off, like,
Grace just looked as though I don't know about that.
That's a hot take.
yeah, I don't know. I'm just a dude who likes football and is married and gambles a little bit on the side and
A
raises
little
a
bit?
daughter. Yeah.
All right. Ready for a little
I hit
trivia?
Jets +3 on Monday, by the way. That was great.
I saw you. You didn't seem to be very happy with the Jets' game plan late in the game. You wanted to throw the ball. It's so obvious. I can tell who has money on what team, but like how they angry tweet.
I wasn't
offensive
angry
coordinators.
because like when Aaron Rodgers blew his Achilles 4 plays into the game, I just thought it was a loss. So the fact that like he came back and won is like a free, that's like a windfall for me. But the thing I don't understand about the NFL, and this is a pretty interesting, I think, Stars Matter recruiting discussion, is I'm sorry. How do you properly evaluate a quarterback in college is really, really interesting, right?
Sorry.
But like the randomness of figuring out who's going to be good in the NFL is insane to me. It's like this guy was the number 2 quarterback taken off in the board here, and like he can't even run a basic NFL offense. Like everyone's like, this is Zach's team now, right? Like that's what the coach said after the game, and I was like, if you watched Monday Night Football in its entirety, they were afraid to call plays. Everything was a run and a screen. It's like, how are they going to play football this year? This guy cannot play.
Well, part of it is I'm sure he got no reps that week. He wasn't prepared. Like I'm not a Zach Wilson defender by any stretch. He's not good, but I think
I don't know.
He'll be a little bit more acclimated into the new offense going forward.
But how do you properly evaluate a high school quarterback? And it's like the same thing with Ty Simpson right now. And I don't know what's going to happen with him at Alabama, as his career goes on.
What are you thinking about? Are
But
you thinking about
evaluating-
Manny and a dolphin?
Yeah, it's like
Thinking Nick Saban at SeaWorld with Ty Simpson.
But like seriously though, like it's
Isn't that what they're paid for though?
crapshoot.
That's why they make so much money, because they're supposed to.
No, I know,
evaluate
but
them?
like I like give crap to like right now. People could say that the number one thing that Matt Rule messed up on at Nebraska is picking the wrong quarterback, right?
Out of the
And
portal.
Alabama might be in a weird quarterback pickle because the generational talent that they accepted in the 2021 class, I believe,
22.
was a COVID kid, 22 or COVID evaluation. You're the one who told me this, right?
Yeah.
And like that didn't seem to pan out the way that you would hope for him to be in the game plan this year. So it's like, it's one thing to misevaluate a teenager or a high school prospect, but like if you are a NFL scout and you are going across, all platforms, pro days, all these things, and you take him and pay him the money it took to get him there over the players that they had, like Jamar Chase went after him, right? Like Kyle Pitts, like people that I think are going to be really good. We don't know. The jury's out on Justin Fields. And then this guy can't even run offense. It's like awful. So I kind of have a new appreciation for, quarterback evaluation. There's no rhyme or reason of who's going to be great in the league because, like, even if you look at the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL, they all went to random schools. Obviously, Tua and Hurts and stuff. We have Alabamas and Oklahomas and all that stuff. But like Cal and Texas Tech and, who are the best quarterbacks in the league? They all went to random schools. So it's just a reminder that it's like the hardest thing to evaluate. And if you think it's hard to pick the right teenager to come to your school, it seems even harder to pick the right NFL quarterback from these colleges, even with all the tapes that they have.
Yeah.
I thought it was like awful to watch. Like, I was like, they are not even like, if they had a functional quarterback before over, did you guys watch the game?
Yeah. Every play.
Do you think that like with a functional quarterback or a normal quarterback that could just run basic offense that they would have ran 3 times when they got the fumble back at the end?
No, but
to give Josh Allen the ball back. Oh, who went to Wyoming? It's just like random.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about this, but I find quarterback recruiting the most fascinating part of any of this whole thing is because now, especially in this era where there's one per school and schools only want to take one, kids don't want to go, they know the depth chart and the school's decision. The elite schools, obviously they have more of their pick, but as you go down and guys get off the board, do you take the commitment from the guy who you might not be as sold on? Or do you wait for a guy you think is better, but you're only 50% think you can get him? So I think that's...
Well, I think the difference between pros and college is that there is a certain speculation in college of how the kid's going to develop physically. Because a lot of times, too, they're not done growing and their strength and their stature changes. In the NFL, like I think you have a more clear picture of who they are and what they're going to be.
Yeah, Manny, so Van Dyke's a junior, right?
Yeah.
Is he an NFL prospect? I mean, I know he's got the size.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody was saying after his, rookie of the year season. I think he's sort of the perfect case study, right? I think to me, this is more about marriage, right? Like, are you in the right system? Obviously, talent has a lot to do with it, and Tyler has talent. But I think, just look at his numbers last year. I know Ari can't even look at me. He's just picturing me dangling a little sardine or something.
I was just thinking, where are Tyler Van Dyke and Shannon Dawson going on their honeymoon? When you said marriage, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's like
I used the wrong word. The trigger word. I can't say marriage or honeymoon.
Did you feed a fish?
I did not feed any fish. No.
Okay.
So my point of that was Ari, stop it. Next year, Ari's made fun of Miami's recruiting, the 3-star U. No,
I made fun of them rolling them out intentionally, like it was like some sort of like surprise show.
Okay,
I didn't make fun of them taking them. I thought that they were unveiling them one by one as if it was some sort of like amazing like Siegfried and Roy presentation of magic. It's just like
or some whale diving into the water.
Yeah, I would have done it all at once and tried to escape the scrutiny of it.
Like on a Friday night, get 10 commitments on a Friday night. So my question, do you see them after this year, if Van Dyke goes to the NFL, probably in let's say he has a really good year, obviously, and Shannon Dawson looks like the real deal. They seem to be like they would be a really at the top of the portal destination for a high-profile quarterback.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you just look at Jakari Brown, who's technically the backup quarterback. He didn't necessarily look great in the spring, and then Emory Williams, same thing. I mean, he's a talented freshman, but he's still just in his first year. So I think for sure and Mario talked about, especially with the offensive line, like, yes, they've recruited well. They got Samson Okunlola and they got Francis Mauigoa, 2 5-stars last year. But he's like, we also went to the transfer portal and got 2 starters in Javian Cohen and Matt Lee. So he talked about it. That it's going to continue to be a mix of transfers and recruits going forward. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up with a quarterback.
Okay,
Sorry,
we're going to be trivia. Ari,
No,
you
the
have
thing
any?
that's so funny to me is that like everybody's plan is to get somebody out of the portal, and eventually that's not going to work if everybody wants somebody out of the portal. But yeah, it is just like hitting on a quarterback is so supremely important. It's like we're seeing it in the SEC right now. Like
Totally.
not a lot of great quarterbacks in the SEC. They're not a great. It doesn't seem like their teams in that conference are as good as we typically expect. And where all the best quarterbacks in college football, a lot of them are on the West Coast, and the Pac-12 is the most fun conference to watch. So
Yeah.
it's difficult. And if you became, how do you become, Manny, the place that can get or to be a sexy destination for a transfer? Like, I don't even know.
Have a
You have
good
to show-
coordinator.
You have a good
Yeah, I think-
coordinator and show development, but if you never did before, then how do you do it?
It's difficult. I mean, obviously, having success in the draft, right? Just having guys go to the next level and be like, hey, they played in our system. Look what they're doing now. If you hire a new coordinator, wherever he was at, whoever it is that he developed, I think that's the easiest way to sell it. But Ari can't even look at me.
We'd have to go back to old school where no screen time or anything. So Ari
Yeah.
can just not laughing. But that was you look at every SEC match, SEC match they lost in the first couple of weeks. South Carolina, Spencer Rattler was a good player, but like North Carolina had the better quarterback. Texas had.
Yeah.
Screw this. We're going to trivia.
This is unhinged.
I know. Ari, thank you for taking us off the rails. Okay. Are you ready for a little trivia?
Yeah.
Okay. From 2009 through 2018, a 10-year stretch, 6 of the 10 number 1 overall players in the 247 composite went on to become first-round picks. 3 others were drafted. 1 went undrafted. Who was it? So basically, from
You said 2009 to 19?
2009 to 18, 1 number 1 overall player was not drafted. Who was it?
That's a
I have no idea.
You should have Jeopardy music, and this is hard.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
think. I'm trying to think like who they were, like Dorial Green Beckham. I think Matt Barkley was one of them.
It wasn't Flipper.
Lenny was one of them. Playoff Lenny. I don't know the answer to this one. This is a hard
Trenton
question.
Thompson from Georgia, 2015.
Okay.
Which is crazy because he was a defensive tackle, and like that's, usually if you're the number 1 overall player and you're a defensive tackle, that means you illustrate certain physical traits that like kind of make it impossible for you not to get drafted. I'm
What
surprised to hear
happened to
that.
him, Mitch?
He
What happened?
he played all 4 years, and he was an undrafted free agent. I don't know if he ever played a snap in the NFL, but it wasn't like he played. He just never developed or wasn't good enough or whatever. But so the number 1 overall players who from that stretch who went on to be first-round picks: Jalen Phillips, Robert
Trevor
Nkemdiche,
Lawrence.
Jadeveon Clowney, Rashawn Gary, Trevor Lawrence, and Leonard Fournette. Dorial Green Beckham was a 2nd-round pick. Matt Barkley was a 4th-round pick. Ronald Powell was a 5th-round pick. And Trenton Thompson was undrafted.
We're all stumped.
Yeah. So
That was a good question.
interesting. All right. Ari, how you doing, buddy?
I want Manny to say goodbye to everybody today.
Oh, yeah. So, Manny, you weren't here last week. I don't know if you listened to the pod.
Uh-huh.
We forced Grace to do the sign-off, and I listened. You really didn't do it. You just sort of panicked.
It didn't go very well.
Yeah.
Who,
What
me?
did you say, Grace?
No, Grace.
No, I
Well,
didn't do it
okay.
well. What did I say? I don't know. I think I was just laughing at Ari, and then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, see ya.
Yeah.
I just want to say before we go to the before we leave the show, Manny, I'm not laughing at you. Okay, I'm laughing at the hilarity of me giving Mitch shit about Disney World, and then you, without knowing, chiming in and saying SeaWorld because like I didn't expect that. So like if you would have said that before the show started, I wouldn't have laughed so hard. The thing I was laughing at the most was how hilarious it was that like you happened to go there. I know that wasn't your whole honeymoon, but the fact that you happened to go there when we were making fun of Mitch was just really funny to me. So sorry for ruining the second half of the podcast with my laughs. I still think that Manny's honeymoon was more normal than the laughter would indicate. And SeaWorld, man.
Is that your sign-off, Ari, or are you going to sign us off?
SeaWorld, man. See you later.